let me say a special good morning to listeners, those of you via Classic Radio 105.5 or you listening via 105.9. Good morning and welcome to another edition of To The Point. Our viewers this morning via GBN TV, you're viewing Channel 7, Channel 11 or Channels 20. Good morning to you also, our social media audience. Whether you're via our Facebook page, YouTube channels, good morning. You're via GBN's webpage, gbn.gd. Good morning to you and welcome to another edition of To The Point. I'm your host, GT. It'll be with you until it's 10 a.m. this morning. Welcome. And this morning, and you know, every Thursday we do entertain various departments within the Royal Grenada Police Force. And this morning we will be entertaining the traffic department. And with me this morning we have Sergeant Ryan Smith with us this morning. Good morning to you, Sergeant. How are you doing this morning?
Yeah, pleasant morning to you and pleasant morning to the listening and viewing public.
All right. This morning's program, we will be specifically dealing with traffic and the process of, not only should I say traffic, but I should say accidents, to be precise about it. The process that individuals have to go through when the police get involved, right? The procedures and so forth. And what are the do's and don'ts that individuals out there who may get into accidents, what they should be doing and should not be doing in the process of that. So let's kick it off in terms of the procedures for say when an accident do occur.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would like the listening and viewing public to know what is actually motor vehicular accident. Now, an accident is any personal injury or damage caused by the movement of a vehicle or its load. Now, accidents are categorized in three ways. We have what we refer to as minor accidents. That's where the damage or injury is slight. Then we have serious accidents where the injury is considered of a serious nature and the damage of serious nature, but in categorizing a serious accident, it hinges more on the nature of the injuries. For example, broken bones and so on, and serious internal injuries. And then we have the fatal accident where at least one person lost their life. Now, there are some major factors that cause those accidents, and I think that the general public needs to know that we have what we refer to as the human factors. Human factors that has to deal with behavior and experience. Example, driver error, lack of training and experience, speeding or other injurious action. Injurious action in the sense that where someone may make a poor judgment, a judgment that is considered poor. Stress, we have driver rage, we have impairment or distractions. We have drug use, alcohol, fatigue, and we have mobile phone use, etc., which is very prevalent today on our roads. Then we have the environmental factors, weather condition, okay, traffic control signs. Are there enough signs in a particular area to direct the motoring public? Congestions, we know that congestions lead to driver rage. All right, you are late for work and you want to get there because of the traffic situation, you become irate. Design and use of the roadway. Is that road constructed in the proper way? Are there too much blind corners? Does that road need a box drain or a slipper drain? Does the design increase the chances of hydroplaning? Because of the water is not being channeled out of the road surface properly. All right, we have what we refer to as vehicular factors, that the third factor, and we have the type and condition of vehicle. How that vehicle is constructed, we normally know that you will have recalls. Yes. All right, of vehicles because of malfunction and so on, and that has to do with the design and so on. And the condition of the vehicle. Is that vehicle maintained in the proper way that it should be maintained? The braking system, is it maintained in the proper way? All right, seat belt, failing to wear seat belt, overloading your vehicle. All right, all those things are considered vehicular factors.
All right. Now, you mentioned a lot of factors there that I'm sure lots of drivers and even the listeners and viewers I would adhere to and may have understand. Now, what I would like a bit of an explanation about. I'm driving along the road for some reason something occurred that I've gone into an accident with somebody. What is the procedure do I have to go through now after this occurs?
Okay. Well, according to Section 75 of the Road Traffic Act, there are things that the law requires a driver to do when that driver meets in an accident. All right, for example, the duty to stop in an accident. And Section 75(1) states that a person driving, riding, or in charge of any motor vehicle of any description shall, if owing to the presence of the vehicle on the road, an accident occurs whereby personal injury is caused to any person, or damage is caused to any vehicle, that person must immediately stop. All right, okay. Immediately stop, and B, if required to do so by a person having reasonable grounds for so requiring, give his name and address. All right, the name and address of the owner of the vehicle, the registration number of the vehicle, the name of the insurance company in which the vehicle is insured, the name of all persons in the vehicle at the time of the accident. Now, one might ask, who are reasonable persons? All right, person who have a reasonable grounds for requiring so. For example, a next of kin of someone who got injured in the in the accident, or someone who is involved in the accident.
And you're saying, officer, that this reporting is reported to the officer on duty at the time.
Yes, it is reported to the officer at the time. All right, it can be reported to the time or reported to the officer at the time, as well as persons who have any reasonable grounds for so requiring. So when an accident happens, someone can ask you questions.
Okay.
All right, for example.
Should it be the other party involved in the accident, or someone who's a bystander?
Well, it's not basically a bystander, but it should be the other party that is involved in the accident.
So you should exchange.
Yes, you should exchange information, as well as if, for example, someone get injured in the accident, the next of kin of that person can require information from you, and you are bound by law to give that information. For example, we have insurance company. If the insurance company come on the scene, all right, they have an interest in the matter. So if they ask you a question, then you are bound by law to give those information to those persons.
But is that information required before or after the police intervenes?
Well, that information is required as soon as the accident occurs. All right, that information is
it just sounds a little odd in terms of I got into an accident with someone and me getting into the exchange with them. I wonder if you understand where I'm coming from. Getting into, hey, what's your name? What's your address? Do you have a license? Do you have insurance? In most cases, you don't ever see that interaction happening. You know, it may lead to some folks having some other altercation.
Yes.
You understand? But in most times, you will never hear two individuals doing that. But you're just saying by law that a process of that should take place.
Yes, that should take place according to law. The exchanging of information. All right. So, but it's not an information that can be required by any person. Okay. So you shouldn't just give anyone. So let's say somebody asks you what is your name? Let's say you involve. You should ask that person, why are you requiring that information? Who are you? All right. So you need to get that information to know definitely whether or not to give that information. Because sometimes that person might not be that someone who has reasonable grounds for requiring that information. Okay. So you have to inquire of that person who they are and why they need the information. Who you are associated to, because sometimes an officer might come up in civilian clothing, and sometimes maybe because of the exigencies of the situation, that officer might just ask questions without identifying himself. So you need to say, are you a police officer?
Exactly. Why are you requiring
why are you requiring that information? Because you need to identify himself and so on. But if he is in uniform, you know definitely you'll go ahead and give that information. Also, one of the other requirements is that you need to report the accident as soon as reasonable practicable, but before the expiration of 24 hours after its occurrence. We have seen accident happening, and sometimes persons doesn't call the police to attend to the scene. And for example, someone might say, okay, I'm going to fix your vehicle.
But is it okay for individuals to make personal agreements with another person? Is it okay under the circumstances?
Yes, it is okay for a person to make personal agreement. I do not believe that the police would stop persons from solving their issues without going to court. I mean, those trivial accidents, small accidents, a little fender bender, you know, a little thing you will encourage persons, yes, to do to work out that situation among themselves. But what we are saying is that when that do occur, when time for the person to get payment or compensation for the damage, then the person are not following up with the agreement that they made to pay you, and then you having problem, and then that person is now coming to the police and saying that an accident occurred. But what we would advise is that you get the police involved, and then
typically should be one of the requirements that you're getting to. Get the police involved,
because basically, when you do not get the police involved, then there are less evidence that the police can work with, because, for example, measurement would not be taken.
Yes.
All right? Although there are other circumstances that we can use to ensure that we get a matter before the court, but we will like to have all the evidence in place. For example, measurement, the short statements on the scene and so on. That will be out of the way when the police is not called in at the scene. So what we advise, call the police, and then you can settle your matter.
Could I ask this for the benefit of listeners, of folks who may get into a situation and may be wondering why? What's the reason or reasons behind measurements taken by the police?
Well, for example, if I should explain it that way, remember that both parties have a certain portion of the road to use.
Yes.
All right. For example, let's say a road is 20 feet. Both drivers have 10 feet to utilize.
Roads to utilize.
To utilize.
On either side.
Yes, on either side. And we drive on the left side. So both of us should be on our left side. Now the measurement would indicate whether or not one of the parties encroach, all right, into the other person's spot. All right, for example, where the point of impact is located. If you're supposed to be on the left side and your point of impact is located way on the right, that means that you encroach on the other into the other person's lane.
Okay.
Actually, so that will say that you was not driving with due care and attention. Something may have distracted you and you drift over to the right side of the road. So that basically, that's what the measurement would actually conclude. It would also give an indication, for example, brake impression. It will give the length of your brake impression will determine your speed, whether or not you're all over the speed limit in that particular area, and so on. So that's what the measurement does. It gives an indication where the vehicle was prior to the impact and where the impact took place. Right. So, for example, your left rear wheel to the left of the road. All right, that will indicate where your vehicle was at the time of the accident. Yes.
What's in the issue of case of liabilities in terms of individual accepting liabilities just in case of the accident? Where does the police fit into this?
Well,
or not wanting to accept liabilities, even though they are the main culprit or cause of the accident.
Well, the police does not get involved in terms of persons accepting liabilities. Well, the police are creatures of the law, and what the police does is the police come to investigate the matter. All right, accepting liability, that should be determined between both parties.
Okay.
That will be determined between both parties.
All right.
So the police would not tell you to accept liability and so on. All right. Probably, if you want an advice based on the evidence that the police have, the police might say, well, basically, if you come to the station, and we would not, the police would not say, when the police come at the scene, the police would not say who is at fault,
who is wrong, and
who is wrong or right. All right, because you know what that can cause. That can cause conflict. It can say that the police is taking side, but probably if you come to the station and you ask for an advice, the investigating officer will tell you, well, based on what I have, I believe that you is at fault, but he wouldn't tell you to accept liability.
Okay, that depends on you now and your insurance and what.
Yes, that depends on you and your insurance company and so on.
All right, acceptable. We drew for a break. Let's take it. We come back with more. We with the traffic department this morning. We have Sergeant Ryan Smith with us this morning. We coming right back. Stay with us, folks. Here on To the Point.
High impact doors and windows can be yours. Now available at Caribbean Shutters Windows and Doors, agents for Domus Windows and Doors. Get custom-made UPVC products with a 20-year warranty on frames and a 5-year warranty on hardware, complete with installation and so much more. Visit our showroom at 11 Frequente Industrial Park, St. George, or call 439-1293, or visit our website at www.domuswindows.com.
Do you know when you play the games of the National Lotteries Authority, you are supporting sports, culture, and nation building in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique.
Hi, I am Junior Murray, cricket coach, sports enthusiast, and a former West Indies cricketer. I endorse the games of the NLA 100%. For the past 40 years, the NLA has been funding many sporting activities, including competition for schools and clubs, and for athletes to participate in overseas tournaments such as the Carifta Games and regional cricket tournaments. Additionally, they made it possible for you, the public, to view local, regional, and international tournaments from the comfort of your homes. For those reasons, I play the game of the NLA. Even if I do not win, I know Grenada always wins.
Yes, when you play all the games, the NLA in turn supports sports, culture, and nation-building activities throughout the Tri-Island state.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. It's to the point for today, Thursday, the 20th day of April, within the year 2023. Sergeant Rohan Smith with me this morning, representing the traffic department within the Royal Grenada Police Force. Sergeant Smith, welcome back once again. Let's kind of switch the conversation a wee bit this morning in terms of an individual gets into an accident, the police intervenes when they at the accident point, if I could say it that way. Now, what are some of the things that the police can do to determine cause of accidents? Then, what some of the things the police can do in terms of maybe wanting to get that vehicle taken to a police garage, have some kind of testing do to see if the braking points or the brakes or something cause that problem. Are those those things could be acts of the persons getting themselves in the accident?
Yes, it can be asked of the persons. Well, under Section 76 of the Road Traffic Act, it gives the police the power to test or cause a vehicle to be tested after an accident. And I just want to quote, where an accident occurs owing to the presence of a vehicle on the road, a member of the police force may inspect and test the vehicle or cause it to be inspected and tested by an inspector, and may for this purpose require that the vehicle shall be driven or taken away from the scene of the accident until it has been inspected and tested. And the law goes further to say any persons who obstruct an inspector or member of the police force in the performance of his or her duty under this section, contravenes or fail to comply with this section, or fails to comply with the requirement by a member of the police force made under this section. So once the police visit an accident scene and the police is of the opinion that the brakes or any part of the vehicle is malfunctioning, and it can be a reason for the cause of the accident, then the officer can impound that vehicle and cause it to be tested, and the testing must be done by a qualified mechanic. All right. Now, not only that, the persons would say on the accident scene, the reason why I run into that particular vehicle is because I didn't get brakes. All right, I didn't get brakes. My brakes is working. My lighting system is not working. So once the malfunction can be connected to the cause of the accident, then the testing will be done. The mandatory testing will be done, because if the testing is not done, then you cannot charge a person for any violation of the law.
All right, but then it could be said. Supposedly, I coming down the road for the last hour or so driving. My brakes was working, but at that point in time, my brakes failed. Yes, I got into an accident. How's the liability range with me then?
Yes. Well, hence the reason for the inspection. Now, once the officer, once the mechanic conduct that inspection, the mechanic can determine based on what he see whether or not it was an old problem. It was a problem that the driver should have known about, because you need to check your vehicle in the morning and so on. This is a requirement to ensure that your vehicle is malfunctioning. And when the mechanic look at the one part, he can say whether or not it was an existing problem. So once there is knowledge that you had that existing problem and you still continue to use that vehicle in that condition, Hence the reason the offense comes in what we refer to as reckless driving. And reckless driving has to do with knowing that a risk exists and the driver still continue to use that vehicle in that dangerous condition.
All right. Now, you stated when we started, how folks could determine or get themselves into accidents. Because you state different factors.
Yes.
Reckless driving, vehicles with wrong, should I say, unmaintained vehicles.
Yes,
and
because
so
that
forth.
are not maintained properly.
Now, what are some of the factors that the police could get into if someone knowingly, or what can occur to that individual, what charges can be brought on that individual if they knowingly drive a vehicle knowing that it has a particular problem?
Yes, well, the charge that
Let's say, poor tires, a bad braking system, and they know these factors are wrong with the vehicle and continue to drive.
Okay. So the charge that person, the charge that will be levied against that person is reckless driving. A reckless driving.
All right. So basically, reckless driving, and you could be charges. Let's get into some of the penalties that could occur in individuals in terms of when they get into accident. What are some of the main penalties that?
Well, the main penalty is that your license could be suspended. All right, your license would be suspended for a lengthy period of time. There are charges of over $2,500, both fine and imprisonment and so on for driving, for reckless driving and driving to due care and attention. But the charges will hinge on the circumstances. How serious was the circumstance? All right, the seriousness of the circumstances in cases.
All right. Hey, folks, it's to the point this morning. So you viewers and listeners out there, if you do have a question or two you may like to ask the officer, feel free to do so. And, of course, feel free. I'm looking at a question here that's been posted by an individual online, and they asking how much they know about the mark, brakes, and impression, etc. How does that pop in?
What's the question?
How does anyone know, or maybe the officer or you who is checking at the time, but during the course of an accident, how would they know, about the said marks and impression, brake impression, and so forth?
Yes. Well, the brake impression, there is an equation. There is a mathematical equation that can be used to determine the speed of the vehicle. All right, to determine the speed the vehicle was traveling to get that particular length of brake impression.
All right. Okay. Now, is there any other factors that we should know about in the process of an accident that you haven't mentioned thus far?
Yes, there are many more factors. Persons might wonder why a warning is given to them on the scene of an accident. But Section 69 requires that a notice of intended prosecution be served on that person if they were not warned at the time. Normally, when you meet in an accident, the police will tell you may be reported for the question to be considered of prosecuting you for either of the offenses of driving to due care and attention, dangerous driving, or reckless driving. Once that is done on the scene, if that is not done on the scene, let's say an accident occur and you didn't report it, and then you came into the department and reported some days after, 2 days after, so on, then a notice of intended prosecution must be served on you 14 days prior to the day from the date the accident occurred.
So would that notice be, or that warning be put on the individual who caused the accident?
No, the warning will be given to both parties. Most of the time, the warning will be given to both parties, and then after the follow-up investigation is completed, then a charge will be preferred of either one of the parties or both parties.
All right. Let's entertain our caller this morning and see what they have to offer. Caller, good morning, welcome. Good morning to you, caller.
How you doing?
Not bad.
Good morning to you guys. I've seen guys, some of my friends, when it's time for inspection, they would go and get a vehicle fixed, check the brakes, show your lighting and stuff like that, just to get it gone past inspection. But after that, the vehicles would have multiple problems, and they'll just be on the road driving up and down. I wonder if the police thinking about what you call when they have the road check, if they would have that same kind of issue. They make the driver check your light, check the indicators, check the brakes, check enough things because most of the guys, they only get a vehicle ready for inspection. And after that whole year, anything goes. Anything goes. So I want the police normally look at that. Have a nice day, brother.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your participating here this morning. You want to respond to that?
Yes, Scholar, the police would normally look at those things. Hence the reason why we have traffic checks, and we have traffic check both day and night. And night time, we will always see the lights and so on to ensure that things are working in those vehicles. Vehicles are being impounded for being for being in a defective condition, and vehicle being in a defective condition is also an offense. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
What are some of the factors that we could speak about this morning in terms of that relates to that would cause an individual have to get re-inspected?
Okay. Well, an individual will get re-inspected when there is a violation of the law. In terms of, let's say, for tint, lights, tires, all right? Tires on the vehicle, the tires need to be changed. As a matter of fact, a vehicle can be impounded for bad tires, all right? Impounded, taken to the station until the tires are changed. So a vehicle cannot, does not be impounded only for no insurance, but also for defective condition. A vehicle is sometimes you see vehicles in such a rotten state. All right, and what is considered when a vehicle is defective is whether or not that vehicle is likely to cause danger to persons using the road as well as the person that is using the vehicle. So the occupants of the vehicle as well, whether it's likely to cause danger. For example, if your braking if your braking system is malfunctioning, all right, that vehicle is likely to cause danger to persons in the vehicle as well as the person to using the road, because that vehicle would not stop within the stopping distance that is required at a particular speed. It will have to go a longer distance before it stops, or sometimes it doesn't stop at all.
All right, so those are some of the factors that folks could look out for. 435-2041. If you do have a question or two you may like to ask Sergeant Ryan, feel free to do so, folks. 435-2041. Tell us, Sergeant Ryan, so if you could still mention some of the factors that folks could adhere to in just in case accidents do occur.
Yes.
That we may have missed in terms of what we will, first segment.
Okay. Well, I just would want to go over the three major factors that cause road accidents and injury. We have three factors. We have the human factor, we have the environmental factor, and we have the vehicular factor. And I'll just start with the human factor, because the human factors are more prevalent in that sense, and that has to do with driver behavior. How do you behave on the road? Do you drive with reasonable consideration for other road users?
That due care and attention.
Yes,
also.
yes. Did you drive with due care and attention, or do you drive with reasonable consideration for other road users? Does your driving standard, all right, is one of a careful and prudent driver? All right, those are the factors, and that has to do with driver behavior or experience. Example, driver error. All right, poor judgment, lack of training. Most person you do not acquire that experience yet, but you want to drive at a particular speed. You do not have training in maneuvering a particular vehicle, but yet you want to drive it. For example, the different class of license, probably you have a B class license and it doesn't acquire a D class license to drive pickup, but yet you want to drive pickup. When you're driving a pickup or you're driving a truck, you does not have that experience. Okay. All right, because the license will determine whether or not you are competent to drive a particular vehicle.
I would ask you to just hold a second, let's entertain our caller, and then we will continue with more of the explanation. Good morning to you, caller. Welcome.
Good morning. Yes, I have a big complaint. On the sidewalk, every morning I go to the beach and Pandy Beach. All them vehicles are parking there, and I cannot walk on the sidewalk. I have to go out in the road, and this is dangerous because them grandans boss, like they want to lick you down. Okay? So you all have to do something about that. Every time there's a vehicle parked on the sidewalk, you go down grandans on the sidewalk. I don't know if the sidewalk is for vehicle or human being. I don't know, but I believe it's for vehicle because we cannot get no chance in walking on the sidewalk. They want to lick you down. Them grandans boss speed. They want to lick you. I have to stand up and wait for the longest while to get where you're going. And that is really bad. A tired complain about that. I just call the police station. A tired and nothing in doing.
All right, caller. Thank you for your contribution. Now we want to continue, officer, with of course, the expression you would give it pertaining to human error.
Yes, we're talking about human error, lack of training and experience. We have speeding. Do you drive within the speed limit, or do your speed match the circumstances that is existing at the time? All right. When, for example, when the road is wet and dry, when the road is wet, you know that your braking distance increases. Do you drive at the same speed? All right. When there is sand in the road, when there is gravel on the roadway, do you drive at the same speed? Do you drive on the same speed? So even if you drive at a speed that is less than the speed limit in the area, then that speed could be dangerous. For example, based on what is taking place. For example, we all know that when it's school hours, all right, you're familiar that there is a school zone in that area. All right. Do you drive 40, 50 miles in that area? No. Do you drive? Yes, because... I
mean, you have to have that personal alertness.
Yes, you must have that personal alertness to know what is taking place.
Should I be going to speed? Because I know in school, children will be maybe using the roadway, pedestrians cross, could be ahead, so you may know how to reduce your speed. Or even... But you read something that kind of tickles me out my mind a wee bit when you said knowing when to use a particular speed limit. Can you expand on that a wee bit?
Yes, all right. Well, the speed limit in Grenada is 20 miles per hour in all towns and 35 miles per hour for commercial vehicles, vehicles that carry the T letter on the registration plate, and 40 miles per hour for private vehicles. However, if you drive at 40 miles in a 40-mile zone, that speed could still be dangerous based on the circumstances that is occurring in that area. For example, we know when the rush hour is, all right, between 7 and 9 in the morning, we know how our streets would be, especially in the town. Would you drive at 40 miles per hour in those circumstances? All right, based on what is happening on the Calivini Public Road, you know there is a line of vehicle. Would you drive at a speed at a speed where you're driving fall way below the standard of a prudent and careful driver?
It could be no deemed as causing a bit of obstruction to a point.
Yes, it could be deemed as that as well. So your behavior on the road or your speed that you decide to use must match the circumstances.
All right, let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning, you're welcome.
Morning and morning to you, to your guest, Albertus. In relation to derelict vehicles, I see, they had a cleanup campaign, derelict vehicles on the roads or wherever and what have you. It came to my understanding that the police is working in various areas, tagging or putting a mark on vehicles that should be towed away or should not be on the side of the road where be. What I want to know if this applies to in roads, like for instance, off the main lane, like in a by roadway, people had a vehicle parked close to the home, they have a driveway, and if they have it there and they don't have a driveway, if that applies to them, they go come and put a tag on it to be towed away, or they have to move it. That's my question.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution.
Yes, caller. That applies to in-road as well. And the word is the derelict vehicles are what we refer to as broken down vehicles. So once a vehicle is broken down and it's on any road, it doesn't have to be the main road or an inside road. Yeah, a tag will be placed on it.
All right. There's a question also from someone online this morning who's asking this question. They're saying that they want to ask you this, officer. They're saying that if there are roadways where, of course, the line does not demarc where for your left side or your right side.
Yes.
You understand? There's no line. How can an accident became just the? Let me see if I could I'm trying to kind of break the question down a wee bit to make it a little bit simpler. They're saying that the lines that divide the roads contributes to lots to be accidents because drivers have to estimate what half of the road they have to occupy. What if you're getting that drift for the question?
Yes, but I do not I cannot concur with that statement, or to say that I agree with it, in the sense because the demarcation line that separate the roads that separate the road into two halves, all right, that will actually help the driver to stay on his side.
Yeah. But they're probably trying to say probably there's a road that does not have
Yes,
that
as well as
demarcation.
so if the road does not have that demarcation line, all right, in the middle, when the police visit an accident scene that occur in that area, the police would measure the width of the road.
Okay.
Will measure the width of the road. Hence the reason why we take the measurement, the width of the road at the point of impact, and point of impact to the right and point of impact to the left of the road.
Well, gives you a conclusion that
Yes,
this individual may have had enough room to
had enough room to
okay.
pass. And so on.
Understandable.
Yes.
Good morning, caller. Welcome.
Yes, good morning. As we speak, there's an accident in the Tantain roundabout, just after the roundabout by the botanical garden there, coming up towards the lane. A truck and a jeep met in an accident right there. The truck, to me, is on the right side, and the van was going up the road towards the lane, and he just turned around like a U-turn and hit the truck so hard. I don't know what happened. And it's young men, right, in that vehicle, and I haven't seen any number plate on the Jeep, you know. I don't know. So, but the police is right there attending to the situation right now. So I think that program is very, very much appropriate, you know. So I hope listeners are listening and taking note. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for that contribution there this morning. Before we continue with another caller, we due for a break. Let's take it, and we certainly will come back with much more. It's to the point for today, Thursday, the 20th of April. We're coming right back after the break. Stay with us, folks.
Records at the traffic department shows that a total of 1,447 accidents were reported for the year 2012, which includes 3 road fatalities. 2,946 accidents were reported for the year 2022, which includes 8 road fatalities. This is a significant increase of 104%. This is alarming. When a family tragically loses a loved one, does it matter whether by means of a gun or a motor vehicle? To avoid accidents, drivers and pedestrians alike must exercise extreme caution when using the road.
Wait to see my granddaughter.
Welcome back to our listeners and viewers this morning. It's to the point. We do have Sergeant Ryan with us this morning from the traffic department, and we're talking accidents this morning. So if you do have a question or two that you may like to ask, you could feel free to call. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Pleasant good morning.
Good morning.
And to your guest. My question, could the officer kindly enlighten us as to the traffic rules again, driving off the ambulance, government vehicles, especially the driving of our Prime Minister, and the RRU vehicles. Yeah.
Okay, caller. Thank you. I think the officer did hear what you said. He certainly will try to answer you. Thank you so much.
Caller, not sure what you're actually trying to ask, but in the whether or not it's how do one drive when the siren is being utilized? All right, once a siren is being utilized by an emergency vehicle, any vehicle that is traveling on the road at the time, the law requires that you pull to the left side of the road and stop. Now, the siren being on a motor vehicle does not give the driver the authority to drive recklessly or the authority to drive without due care and attention, or his driving standard should not fall way below that is required of a careful and prudent driver.
All right, and that refers to even the ambulance driver.
That refers to even the ambulance driver.
All right. A quick question I would like to ask for some clarification. Is it that when individuals see government officials, as for example the Prime Minister or so forth, is traveling with his entourage, do they have to give clearance?
Yes, they have to give clearance once the lights are on the vehicle. All right, once the light is on and the siren is on the vehicle, the vehicle in front of that vehicle should pull to the left and stop so that you provide a clear passage for the Prime Minister's vehicle or any emergency vehicle.
Because sometimes you see drivers trying to compete.
Yes, trying to compete.
Even with ambulance also, they're trying to compete in terms of the speed that they go in, and we see drivers. So you would say that is not appropriate for them to do.
Yes, it's not appropriate. And what we see happening these days is that when the ambulance is traveling with the siren, you will see vehicles speeding behind the ambulance.
Trying to get
all right, and trying to get there. And when that person pulled to the left and stop now, and that person trying to get back into the traffic, you know what happens? We have an accident because there is another vehicle speeding behind the ambulance, and that shouldn't be.
All right. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning, Brother Smith. The officer spoke of speed limit. He mentioned P vehicles and H vehicles and T vehicles. I didn't mention H vehicles. Which H vehicles? That's bus and taxi, stuff like that. They are also supposed to be driving at 35 miles per hour as the maximum speed limit. The broken lines. Now, what I see happening in Grenada is that people using paint, well, the miniature works, really. Because of that, I don't think it's the police that doing that, for the road supposed to be marked by the Ministry of Works. And they're using broken lines at corners, and in order maybe to save paint. But we have to understand that broken lines and solid line on the road mean something. A solid line means that you cannot overtake, right? And a broken line means you could overtake. So you normally will find a broken line on a stretch, right? Not around corners. And you have people painting the road. I remember when St. David Road was done, was broken lines right through. And that should not have been. So I think that we need to get the government and the police have to get, they have to sync so that one will be doing things that is unlawful. And thirdly, the inspection. We know how inspection is done in Grenada. But I think now they should have inspection. The police should be the one to get in the vehicle and start the vehicle, move the vehicle, whatever. And also the inspection should be done in an area where you could check the lights, because just looking at a light on a vehicle in the day cannot tell you where that light is shining, how far the light is projected. And the law requires that light should project a certain amount of distance. And we have lights now that comes on in the night, and the light flashing one side, it's on, but it's not. So that's a danger also that could contribute to accidents. So I just think that I should show that so that we could look at these things. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contributions there. All right. There's a question I would like to ask in terms of, especially with new drivers. Has the traffic department ever give consideration of thinking of especially new drivers or drivers in general when they're going to be obtaining a license in terms of a special driving course that should be offered in terms of defensive driving?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that is on the table in terms of in terms of training those driving instructors. All right, in terms of doing a course in defensive
And
driving.
you see, most people are just learn to do basic driving.
Yeah, basic driving.
Basic driving.
All right. So we believe that if we pass on that skill or that knowledge to the instructors, then they can pass it on to those to those new drivers who come into them for tutoring to be tutored. Yes. So yes. So that is on the table. Yes.
Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Good morning. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I must confess I haven't listened to the program thoroughly, but I want to make a point. When all the things that are happening, all the infraction, all the negative thing in our country, I ask myself, what is the purpose of education? Because it will mean that we are failing, and probably even from the issue of driving on the use of the road, we need to start very early to help people understand that the road is a public space. And they should be held. They will be held responsible for the death or injury of people. Seems as though there are people who use the road, whether walking or driving or whatever, they use it as if like their private property, and they could do anything. Unfortunately, we need to really do something to people to understand that we have to protect one another's life. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. Thank you also for your contribution. I'm not sure if you want to respond to anything the caller say. Oh, you said that.
Yeah. Yes. Edu, we adopt the 4E principle of traffic management, and one of those principles is education. And we have been going to schools. We have been adopting schools and so on. To educate them and so on as to the use of the road, so that they can pass it on to the children as well as their parents. When they get home, they can tell their parents, well, I learned that in school today, and you should do that. And when they are in the vehicle with their parents and the parent does something wrong, they can pull up their parents and say, yes, Daddy, the police say the police say you shouldn't do that. All right.
Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
A pleasant good morning. Now, I want to ask a question that might be sounding foolish and stupid. The citizens of this tri-island state are considered only when they go to put an X for the politician. I am asking this question against the fact that this question of driving irresponsibly, and in particular young people on the road, buses, etc. They do what they want. All right, you play loud music, okay, take the number, and nothing is being done. I personally have suggested that in order to control all these things that are going on, to get the culprits red-handed, you place cameras at certain strategic points. The police force is not large enough to handle all of this. And I'm getting the impression that, because you're not high up in society, etc., to give a suggestion, well, what you're seeing is just trash. If advice is taken by citizens who have traveled and know what goes on in other countries, could be adapted here. What is wrong with that? I think the police and everybody just wasting time. Get cameras. You put at strategic places. The camera will take the number, etc., and then you have the culprit. You bring charges and he can't doubt because the camera wouldn't lie. I cannot understand what's going on in this Grenada. Only Mr. This and Mr. That advice you can take, and the ordinary citizen is just trash. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution this morning. A question I would like to ask, and maybe it goes across the board. If you have that information, you could share with us this morning. Penalties and consequences for of course, people who continuously, get involved in accidents for various reasons. What are some of the penalties and consequences that can happen? I think you did mention it to a point, but then we had to cut. Okay. If you could answer that, can we just have about 10 more minutes left?
Well, the penalties and consequences that your driving license can be suspended. Your driving license can be taken away, so then you can be banned from driving. All right, so you will not be able to drive again. All right, especially if you're meeting like fatal accidents or serious accidents, and the circumstances, the manner in which you drive is far below what that is expected of a careful and prudent driver. So there are penalties, and the penalty will weigh depending on the circumstances where that is brought before the magistrate. For example, persons you could be fined. You could be fined up to $2,500 for a violation, as well as even though you are fined $2,500. What about the civil part of it? You will have to repair somebody's vehicle, which will reach in thousands of dollars. And that will cause for your insurance premium to increase. So you have to look for more money in other words to fit those bills and so on. So it's not just that it's not just that the fine and penalties and going in prison for 6 months or a year or 2 years or 10 years as the case may be in terms of fatal accidents, but how does your behavior on the road affect someone else's life? For example, your action take away a breadwinner of a family. That family has to struggle for the rest of their lives. They are little children who are depending on their parents. All right, to really take care of them. And when you take away their parents, all right, you send them in foster home and so on. So these are the things that we want drivers to consider. How would you affect other persons, because our behavior do affect other persons, so we must think outside of the box, because it's not just about going to the magistrate court and paying a fine, but you can cause injury to person that will put them in a wheelchair for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. We do have a caller. Let's take this caller, maybe our final caller for the morning. Caller, good morning, you're welcome.
Yes, good morning. Could you ask the sergeant if he can address the pedestrian crossing?
All right, thank you, caller.
Because it's they see ads on the TV, but they don't follow the ads. They're just crossing anyhow, and it's dangerous.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Sergeant, I'm not sure if you want to the rule that should engage in terms of individuals using pedestrian cross.
Yes, the pedestrian crossing must be used appropriately or properly by both the pedestrian and the motoring public. All right. When you look at the pedestrian crossing, there are two demarcation lines at both ends. That's what we refer to as the cutoff line. Now, once a driver is approaching a pedestrian crossing and he saw how he look and see someone is within that cutoff line, the driver must stop. All right. Prepare to stop and stop behind that cutoff line. Also, the pedestrian that needs to use that pedestrian crossing must indicate that he needs to cross. For example, he needs to stop, look left, look right, look left again, put up his hand to indicate that he needs to cross, make eye contact with the driver, and that pedestrian should cross only when that vehicle come to a stop, and the reason being that brakes can fail anytime. So if the vehicle does not stop and you just step into the road and you're saying that a pedestrian crossing, the driver have to stop, you never know. Yeah. The brakes can fail. So you need to go across the pedestrian crossing in a quick manner, but you should not run. For example, persons will be crossing with children. You need to make sure that your children does not that your child or the children does not have anything in their hands, and you need to hold their hand firmly, because if the child has something in her hand and it falls, she will immediately pull
Just
a
stop and
hands
pick it up
free,
and pick it up
free
again.
and try to stop to pick it up. So those are the things that you need to consider when you're crossing the pedestrian crossing. What we see, what we normally see happening, a pedestrian just walking along the sidewalk and just turn into the road immediately without even standing up and looking to the left and looking to the right and so on. And those things can cause accident. So both the driver and the pedestrian needs to use the pedestrian crossing appropriately. So once a driver is approaching a pedestrian crossing, then he needs to reduce his speed. All right, you need to reduce your speed. You need to make your hand signal to slow down the vehicle behind you, because that means that your speed is reducing because you are approaching a pedestrian crossing.
All right. Of course, Sergeant Ryan, I'm not sure if you want to give a final, of course, just a final summary of what we spoke about this morning, a bit of reminders to drivers on the roads before we take a wrap for today.
Yes, I just want to remind drivers that you have a responsibility. And a responsibility in the sense that a driving license is not a right. All right, it's not a right. It's a privilege that is granted to an individual to drive on our road. So at any time, that privilege can be taken away. All right, because of some injudicious action. All right, some poor judgment of that driver. And we want driver to exercise due care and attention on our roads. Ensure that your motor vehicles are maintained in a good condition, all right, that it meet the requirements according to law. We want drivers to follow the speed limit, avoid using your cell phones, all right. Ensure that you wear your seatbelt up, because seatbelts will normally reduce injury. The use of drugs, the use of alcohol, driving when you are tired, all right, stress also cause road accidents because you're not focused on the driving task. So if you have stress, it's better that you stay off the road or get somebody to drive you. If you're tired or you fatigued, you need to rest before you drive. As well as if you are tired and you consume alcohol induce sleep. All right, so you'll want to get another driver, use public transportation and so on to ensure that the accidents on our road is at a minimal.
All right. Sergeant Ryan Smith, I want to thank you once again for sharing information that you did share with us this morning, and certainly fruitful information. Certainly those who viewed and listened will adhere to, of course, what you mentioned. Thanks once again for being with us this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much, GT, and thank you very much to the listening public for having me this morning. Thank you so much.
Hey, folks, to our listeners and viewers, I want to say thank you once again. Those who participated some way or the other, whether it's by your phone call, your messages via social media, thank you so much. Join us again for another edition of To The Point. That will be tomorrow, once your Almighty permits. As I will always say, take care of yourself and others. Have a good day, folks. That's what we say goodbye.